Good existence. Welcome to the Community Supported Apothecary. My name is Nicholas Jensen Denton and I am the creator. Today we're going to talk about whole being healing, what it really means, what it's really doing, and how that is different from, say, Western healing. Now, whole being healing is basically my way of saying the Eastern tradition means of healing, such as Ayurveda, such as the Wei Dan and Nei Dan internal and external alchemies of the ancient Taoist monks, such as alchemy of the 17th century and its healing modalities, and herbalism in general. Holism really is what we're looking at. Now, we've all heard the term holistic health and holism before, but what really is it? It's actually the art of making things holy or whole. So the principal tenet that we're working with here is that we all come from the same consciousness, the same one source, the same singular piece of energy at the beginning of existence that Stephen Hawking was so familiarly quoted as saying the singularity, and then mathematically describing that thing and all of his wacky theoretical sciences, which are great, but they're not that unifying and they're not that holistic. Why aren't they like this? Well, it's like this in the Western world. In the Western world, we basically branded materialism. Now, materialism is the belief, is the implicit, overarching cultural belief that the material world, the physical things, my fingers, this, that, is not a lot of stuff in the frame, I know, but all the physical things that you can see, touch, smell, hear, and taste are truly the only things that are real. And if you really sit down and do the math for a little while, that's not exactly true to our experience. With science, we've been able to develop these instruments to look at different parts of the electromagnetic spectrum. However, the human bandwidth, or the frequency of the human's perceptual capacities, is very, very narrow in the physical sense. And what Western health has done is taken this very, very narrow bandwidth of physical sense data and said, this is all there is. Now, we know now that with the advent of inquiring into the nature of things, that dark energy and dark matter and invisible waves imperceptible to the human eye actually make up the majority of the universe. We just say 99% because the real number, I'm not sure of the math exactly, but the physical aspect of the universe is something like 4.2 times 10 to the negative 22nd. That's like 22 zeros, 0.0 followed by 21 more zeros, 42% physical. So the physical reality of everything that makes up our worldly experience really is a tiny little fraction of the whole, of the holism, of the whole being, which is Gaia basically, that we're living in. So the Western world has taken different aspects of looking at the world, like physics is an aspect, chemistry is an aspect, biology is an aspect. There's other studies that are aspects of this perspective, of this materialist perspective, and we call these things hard sciences. Now, the goal of science really, the goal of what science used to be was to develop a unified field theory. And today, there are many out there, some of them not so great, some of them fantastic. I can't urge you enough to look into the theories of everything out there. The compartmentalized worldview of these different hard sciences lacks a unifying field theory that ties them all together. So, whole being healing, you see, this is kind of a new thing. In the 14th, 15th, like I mentioned, in the alchemical times, up until about the 18th and 19th centuries, we had a conceptual understanding culturally of what matter was. And we have since lost that understanding because we've quote unquote evolved our social understanding of the world to move out of the occult, spiritual, apocalyptic mindset that those kind of people were running with back in that time. And so, where was I? Right. These forces that we can't see are invisible to the naked eye. They're unstudied, they're unknown, they're untapped potential within the ambiance of the universe. And the question with whole being healing, well, the direction with whole being healing, is to basically draw your awareness to these occulted forces within nature. And what these occulted forces really are they're non-physical components of the self. You see, scientifically, when we look at the world, everything is a reflection of you. Everything. You cannot look at anything, a proton or a dog or a ship, without having your own subjective overlay filtering that information as it comes into you. And so what we find in health and healing and holism is that the more filters you have over your perception, the more skewed or awry your perception of the true nature of reality is, and therefore your capacity to work in the harmony and the movement and the momentum of the cosmos and move with the cosmic energy is severely reduced, because it's basically one step forward, two steps back. And if you look at history and the continual rise and fall of oligarchical civilizations, rich feudal landowners that destroy civilization and turn wars on each other, you'll see that I kind of got a little bit lost in what I was saying, holism and stuff. But the world is the self. It's all self, right? The world, there is an objective reality, but it's not what people think it is. People have been led to believe that the material world is the origin of the phenomenological experience. Like I'm here, I'm aware, I'm experiencing standing and watching, and you're experiencing listening and seeing right now. That's the phenomenological experience. Something that's not phenomenological would be something that's happening autonomously with inside your system. So what we've realized, what we know, is that the world is dependent upon the observer. This is called biocentrism. The universe revolves around you. I know it might be a crazy thing to say that, but in the future, as science progresses, we'll begin to realize this, that each person truly is a universe. Well, each person is a multiverse within themselves inside of this universe. So this is not a new concept. This is just something that Western science has forgotten, that we're relearning as we continue to dive and cut matter further and further apart. The occultists, the alchemists, the Nadan and the Wedan, and all the others, they knew, and they had compressed these things into what they called, I forget what they called them, but in the alchemical tradition, the main philosophy is Hermeticism, which is the writings and the teachings of the thrice great Hermes. And everybody who's ever read, or researched or looked into religion and mysticism beyond the modern triad, they'll find that the occultists understand the world through this biocentric lens. And instead of biocentrism, they simply say, as within, so without. And that's an axiom to the test. It's a testament to the fact that no matter what you perceive, no matter what you create, no matter what you experience, is truly just a reflection of what is going on inside of your mind, your consciousness, your heart, and is basically a reflection of these filters that we've put through our eyes as we've compartmentalized our worldview in the Western way of learning. which is just something we have ingrained in our mindset. So so with whole being healing, you're looking at taking the inside, the self, and the outside, which is also a reflection of the self, and unifying these two components into a more holistic, wholesome state. And so how on earth, like, sort of, what am I even talking about right now? I'm talking about the connection between mind and matter, where it is. Like, we've all heard of this connection behind mind and matter. We know that we can manifest. We know that, there are strange coincidences, synchronicities, and serendipities in our life, that coincidences we just can't explain. We don't know why or how, and sometimes these things affect our lives in the greatest ways that we've ever been able to conceive of before. And it can be really good, and it can be really bad. The point is that we don't know how really or why that's working. The probabilistic possibility for some of these things to happen are so high that, well, basically what I'm saying is that things are happening for a reason, and there's no such thing as coincidence. There's just us, human beings, creators, creating reality, and then living in that creation. And you are either aware of how much of a creator you are, or you're not, or you're less aware of how much of a creator you are. And so how much of this reality can we really create? Can we really design? So whole being healing is a means of reconnecting the mind to the matter, so that we can see that the self does not end at the body. It does not end at the senses. It does not end where your physical eyes can no longer see. The self, the supreme self, as they say in Hinduism, it is omnipresent. It is omnipotent. It is omniscient. It's all-knowing. It exists everywhere. And I forget what the other one means. But, like, how? Like, most of us have never ever experienced anything like that beyond the physical limits ever in our life. A lot of us have, and if you're here listening to me right now still, I'll assume that you have. But I'm going to speak as in an introductory way, so that anybody listening can understand that, this isn't a random process we're going through. This is a natural and innate capacity within ourselves that we should always have as our co-creator in this existence. Because when we develop our what scientists refer to as higher mental faculties, which are the holistic states of being. They're the creme de la creme of the holistic mindset, right? So where is the connection between mind and matter? You have to look at your higher cognitive faculties. So these faculties, they're first of all, they're outside of language itself. So that makes it very, very difficult to talk about, because as soon as you try to start talking about it, you're moving in the opposite direction of the thing you're trying to understand. And so what only thing that we can do with language to really conceive of it is just gesture in its direction, and like try and get a whiff of the meaning, like of the clarity that comes when somebody says the right thing and you click and, oh, I understand finally. That comes from our higher mental faculties. And our higher mental faculties are creation, the ability to create, primarily expressed through language. I can create a unique, infinite expression that comes from within me. It's primarily expressed through free speech. It was very important in the Renaissance. It was very important in the founding of America and the Constitution, to understand this capacity as speaking things into existence. And so this is what's known as the infinite capacity for unique expressiveness, right? That's one faculty. Creation, imagination, the ability to conceive things in the mind's eye and visualize them even though they are not yet in existence. To see things clearly without the use of language, without thinking, a flash of insight, a flash of understanding, a revelation. Or creation, the ability to take, combining all these things, what we're trying to do is to create unique experiences for the will, the person, the individual, the consciousness within to explore, to create, to reason and inquire and learn more about the existence. So, a part of these higher mental faculties, like I say, imagination and willpower, these things have to be applied and exercised in order to develop them fully, just like any other muscle. And a lot of people think that school and schooling and the education system is there to develop your higher mental faculties. Well, I'm sorry to say, but that's not the truth. They're there to work a certain particular aspect of your mind and not the whole thing. You have to work on the whole thing. What we've discovered is that neurogenesis is self-induced. So you gotta apply the attention and the willpower to exercise your own mental faculties. So if we're trying to exercise these cognitive capacities within our mind, well, this is where the herbs come in, because they can help a lot. They catalyze. They stimulate the traits that we've been endowed with. And part of these traits is just experiencing the unity of the whole universe, which is a state of perpetual bliss. This is the ultimate goal of meditation, is to basically slip into a perpetual orgasm. And without any releases. It's an inward energy building process. But this is how do you acquire it? Like I say, you can't get into it in language. So the monkey mind, which is constantly spinning and turning, when you're in a beta state of awareness or an alpha state of awareness, your mind is constantly running and spinning non-stop. And what we're trying to do with the monkey mind is to shut it up, silence that guy. Because what you realize, once you start trying to do these types of things and develop your higher mental faculties to create and to develop your uniqueness, then you'll see. So getting the monkey mind to quiet is of the utmost importance. When you do this, your brain waves, they start to sink lower into a theta states, just above the realm, basically, where you're sleeping. Sometimes you can get into a state of consciousness that is, your body is completely asleep, but your mind, your consciousness, the non-physical aspect of you, is still awake. This is exactly what we're trying to do. When you go into a deep meditation, you go from the physical material world or into the dream state, you say, and you are going to another pole of your existence, right? You're like this giant pendulum. Your awareness is this pendulum swinging back and forth. It's the flow of life, baby, all right? Now, what you want to do with this pendulum, because all day it's basically swinging back and forth in our minds, keeping these monkeys running around. You want to take this thing and really just slow it down. You want to stop swinging it back and forth so hard and just become immovable, slow, nothingness. Really, the goal of whole being healing is to do nothing at all to the best of your ability. to the point where you stop thinking, you stop cognizing, you stop judging, you stop analyzing and critiquing, and you absolve yourself into yourself. And what you do when that happens is you're like, oh, there's a separation between my thoughts and the experiencer of the thoughts. And now I understand a lot better because because before you start to practice, you identify with your thoughts. But once you start to practice whole being healing, you notice the difference that you are not really your thoughts. And the master meditators, they tell us this. You go into the desert and you sit there and you don't drink or eat anything for 5 days, you start realizing real quick that the voices inside your head, they ain't yours. They're trying to tell you to do things and all sorts of stuff that you're just like, hold on, man. I'm trying to chill. I'm trying to do this. All right? And called your being level. Now the being level of you is where your intent comes from. But the mind, when it's unbalanced with the being level, it's going to pull you in all these different directions. And as your heart and your mind or your being and your mind are being pulled in different directions, you're able to experience the unity and the blissful, perpetual amazingness that is simply the force of divinity that's keeping you alive. I know these are some powerful words, but healing is powerful. And we need to, get that power back, if you know what I'm saying, because, well, we all want a better world, right? Whole being healing, like I said, doesn't stop with the self. The whole universe is a reflection of the self. This healing process is really just evolving the world into a state of less entropy. So, when you go into the meditation, the point of the herbs are to take an herb which is right for you. There's no one thing that's right for everybody. Medicine should not be standardized across the board. Every single person is unique and requires unique attention. And so, within whole being healing, we turn to nature as our progenitor to be like, hey, mother, we are not doing so great over here. We need some help, you see? And so the mother, which is the Medu Nectar, which is the nature, will provide us with the herbs to help every single individual out with their unique problems, blocknesses, deficiencies, etc., to allow you to enter a more holistic state of mind. So, when you enter into a holistic state of mind and you get this experience of oneness, essentially, of wholeness, then you come back from that. And now you're back here in the physical. And you see that there's really a bigger reality within you that you can experience and that you can use as a source of revitalization, rest, and rejuvenation. And learning and a wisdom can also spring forth from these sources within you. However, if you are unbalanced, like I said, you get that and then you come back here and then you're stuck in the body and then you return to material things that continually ingrain you back into your body, drugs, alcohol, just improper living, things that take you out of homeostasis, then it's going to be more and more difficult to get back into that holistic state. And so the point of whole being healing is not to be completely in the material or completely in the spiritual or completely in the non-physical or Mictlan, as some people say, but the point of whole being healing is to find the perfect balance, the median of the pendulum of the back and forth within the mind, so that when you fall into that center column of your mind, you experience heaven. That's what Jesus said. That's what all the greats said. Heaven is in your midst. What is midst? It means center. Heaven is in your center. So you got to go within. Escape outside cognition. Silence the mind. Don't think. And then you move towards this more wholesome experience. And then you start to develop, you start to remember that you really have some supernal talents, some supernatural capacities. And what I call them are asomatic components of the self, which means without relating to the body. And so with whole being healing, to sum it all up really, we are trying to develop the higher cognitive faculties of the mind by managing them better and by focusing on the management specifically of the internal energies as fundamental to our mental health, our happiness, the happiness of those around us, and the health, really, of the environment, which is, if you've been listening, it's you. It's a reflection of you. So, whole being healing, again, I believe that's it. So, please, continue to enjoy your existence. My name's Nicholas Jensen Denton, and thank you for listening so much.